Hey guys, welcome to Friday night's video. My name is Brent David Cartwright. Everybody calls me Doc. Tonight, I normally do a Friday night video, and this week's video is going to basically be on the study of music so that you as a guitarist can get as much as you can out of the actual study of actual music and things that are part of the guitar. This video might be a little bit complicated for some beginners or intermediate players, but once you understand the basics, and they're on my channel, and you can reference my name, David Cartwright, on this channel to find any of the videos that I've posted, and a link to my channel that has most of the basics of covering the basic fundamentals of music and its structures and the basic abstract theories for creating music. After that, you really are going into a place that's going to do two things. That it basically is going to lead you to be some type of genre, to really lean towards some type of genre, or maybe be a little more diversified guitarist, of having different types of genres that you're fairly fluent with and able to improvise in, able to create in, and or to compose in, to work with. After that, you really have another aspect of being a guitarist, which is basically being able to create your own style, your own technique, and your own form. I mean, you can use all kinds of different forms and genres and things that are related to music to actually create your own style and form. And after you've watched the videos that I've placed on there so far, the next logical step for you to go is to really take a look at music and things related to music. So just hold on a second. I'm going to pull out a notebook that I have so that we can just kind of peruse it to give you an understanding of the importance of it, because all aspects of it are going to give you more information that is going to give you more doors. Let's say you're standing in a room in your musical abilities, and the more knowledge you have, the more doors that you have that you can possibly open to take from, to work with in creating your own style, technique, your own form, your own type of genre even. So the more that you understand means the more doors or drawers in your dresser or closet you have, that you can choose from that knowledge base to use in your development and your creations. So let's take a look at that. Hold on just a minute, and I'm going to pull out my notebook to give you just a short example of how complicated it can be, but how useful it can be and how many doors it can open for you. Hold on just a minute while I drag out my notebook. Okay, first of all, I teach audio engineering also, and can be very interrelated to composition and understanding musical components and things like that. So try not to look at it like you just went off to college, because I'm trying to show you this because as you progress and as you develop, that you will slowly accumulate knowledge and wisdom. And there's a video on my channel about keeping notebooks about things you learn. Getting on the internet, Wikipedia, any place you get books or references, and keeping them in your notebooks. Some notebook, I use this OneNote that I've got all my notebooks in for the most part, that are very critical in any of those areas that I'm working when I'm dealing with any type of music, audio engineering, acoustics, music production, recording, mixing, and mastering, all that kind of stuff. But we just want to look at this from the point of the guitar for this moment and being a better musician. All these things are important. Things like acoustics. My first notebook here is on acoustics. I've made notes, I've copied things from Wikipedia, from articles I've gotten all over the place, to make notes about things I thought were very important about acoustics that can be very related to things like effects you use. Understanding acoustics can very much be related to how you use reverb, what type of reverb, delays, different type of flange effects or phaser effects, even distortion or just playing clean. That acoustics can have a huge impact, the better you understand it, of how you incorporate that into your style and techniques. So if you look on here, there's quite a few pages on acoustics, but on this notebook it's just basically covering the basics. And I went into acoustics sound. basically dealing with sound, understanding what sound is, understanding sound itself, understanding the basic building blocks of sound, sound as a palette to work with, the glossary of references, related things that are happening there, all these subjects that you see here, just understanding sound. That I've kept a notebook here. I've got other ones, but these are some of the most important things, and they've got related links in the notebook to other notebooks. To understand sound and what is sound, what all is composed in sound, so that you understand your instrument well, you understand your amplifiers well, you understand the effects you're using, anything like that, that it can have a huge impact on how well you use that when developing your style and technique. Music, understanding music, just music itself, musicology, etymology, music itself. What is music? I mean, to get a really good understanding of it, that sounds funny, but it really can open up doors to make you a better guitar player. The definitions of music, different definitions of music, can give you a lot better understanding of what you're dealing with, so that you have more tools to deal with understanding what is available to develop yourself as a guitarist. Musical elements, basic theory, theory elements, music theory basics, building blocks, general building blocks and philosophies of theoretical possibilities, advanced theory, related, some software dealing with music, and different things that are part of music. Here's a list of things that I thought were real pertinent, with links inside of there to other things that I have in other notebooks that were very important as far as understanding music, so that I could understand what is part of music, what are all the elements of music, so that I can apply those things to my guitar and my playing and my technique and my style, and what things can I develop into other things that I'm doing to develop myself better, what things can I use that ain't normally used that are possibly be able to use, and understand things that I can hear but I don't really understand them that well. Something like funk, to really read about funk, to really read about funk and make notes about it. That sounds funny, but there's tons of links here that I've copied to really research it, to understand that, it's an abstract theory based on the basic building blocks that has become a theoretical concept in itself, that is a bunch of tools to use wherever, anywhere that you would like. And the elements that contain that, and how they correlate with different aspects of music. It goes on and on. Different things and aspects of music. What things are happening in music. Even something like opera. You think you're a guitarist, why want to study opera? Because there are lots of elements that you can incorporate into your playing that can really all of a sudden have a huge impact on, you'll hear people say that this band had this huge impact on me. Well, it's because they were exposed to that. They might have been exposed to that kind of stuff that might also impact their player and make them that much of a better player. That might sound funny, but it's very true. So the list just goes on and on. Scales, it's just simple things and complex things, musical forms, textures. There's an example right there. And then you get into homophony, polyphony, monophony, all kinds of different textures. The guy was talking about octaves the other night. Got a bunch of links on here. He was talking about octaves in a way that was more related to acoustics or sound, but he was relating it to music, which they are interrelated, and there's a prime example of it. I think it was Jacob Peck that was relating the relation to music and to basically sound and the concept of sound and what happens to sound, dealing with when he was talking about harmonics. Theater, timbres. What is a timbre? What is it made of? Tonalities, atonalities, set theories, tones, tritones, transitions. The list goes on and on. Then you get into acoustics, instruments. What kind of instruments on there? As you study different instruments, brass instruments, as you start studying them and relating to them and start to really understand what's going on, what is the definition of instruments? What are different studies of instruments? What does those relations have to do to the guitar and music itself, and how can I use those things? And you got bunches of different types of instruments, and then going down to a list of basic instruments that is a study in themselves that you can basically directly relate to your guitar playing. It can have you come up, you're listening, for an example, like you're listening to a didgeridoo, and you really understand the didgeridoo and what's happening with it, and all of a sudden you start trying to apply this to your guitar. And what would that mean to the guitar if I did some stuff that was basically designed to work around a didgeridoo but played it on my guitar, and all of a sudden you come up with this whole new cool thing that just sounds really wild and cool and badass, and you start writing with it. I know that sounds funny, but it can be very true. You know, so it's all these things are very important tools to help you expand and experiment and have more artistic creations and artistic diversity in, you know, creating yourself in different forms and genres and you know, expressing yourself in different ways with all kinds of different textures and ideas and experimentations. Every one of them is an open door. So it goes on and on and on with that kind of stuff. I mean, even synthesizers are a huge thing that can really open up with MIDI guitars. I put a video on here about that Magic thing where you can incorporate, you know, synthesized guitars into your playing with just an inexpensive DAW and a plug-in, and it just opens up worlds of possibilities. All these things are very important to research and take a look at. Things like acoustics and DSP. This is getting real more into dealing with digital signal processing or analog processing. But still, all these things, you know, a direct relation was that when Jacob Peck was giving you that video on harmonics, and it's basically, he was talking about sound, and he was relating its relation to octaves and harmonies in music when we was talking about music instead of sound. He was correlating it to them. DSP and analog processing and the concepts behind that are very interrelated also, and can help you understand how music works together with its timbres and harmonies, how they correlate, and they can open up worlds of possibilities as far as just understanding digital signal processing and all the things that are happening with digital signal processing. So when you start recording and you start creating, that you're dealing with a whole lot of things that are going to have a huge impact on how you create, what you create, and what things you include in your creations, and it have a huge impact on your guitar playing. And it goes on and on that. My notebooks go on and on and on with dealing with stuff like that, because all these aspects have a huge impact on you developing as a guitarist. The more you understand about those things, the better you're going to understand your guitar, the better you're going to understand, you know, here's one on electronics here somewhere. I've got one on electronics so that I can really understand my electric guitar. If I have an acoustic with things going on, plug into an amp, I can really understand what's happening, what it's doing to the sound, how it's going to impact sound. So it have a huge impact on how I use effects, what effects I use, how I use them, and all kinds of things like that. And I know this video is a little bit detailed, but we got to a point in my series that I think it's very important, because these aspects, once you've gotten through my video series so far, that this is basically where I would lead you to your next study. Start studying a little bit about acoustics, understand sound a little bit better, start studying about music itself. I mean, really start studying about music. What all is involved in music. Make notebooks, study it, branch out, expand your mind and what the possibilities are in music, and different theories and abstract theories and concepts and things related to it. And then really study different instruments, you know, and really branch out, you know, in different instruments, trying to understand how different instruments function, what in different instruments, how they're put together, what kind of musical relations do they have, what about exotic instruments. I really recommend you try to stay in the Western theater until you really get to become an advanced musician before you branch out into different tunings and different exotic things that might cause you a little bit of confusion trying to relate it to basic things. But basically at this point in the series that I've put on, that this is where I would lead you to, because at this point these things are going to be, it may seem a little bit dry and you don't have as much interaction with other people in the group because you're basically in study, but these things are going to open up worlds of possibilities for your experimentations, and you looking around to see what cool new things you can do, what things you can incorporate in what you are doing. And as you develop yourself as a guitarist and become better, that those things you're going to understand, everything down to the electronics, to the sound itself, to the acoustics, to the instruments itself, its relation to other instruments, all the fine details of music and what's happening in music will basically have a huge impact on your style, your technique, and it developing into something that's cool and unique, that's just mind-blowing, that you have all these open doors to reach into, to grab from, that are just like basically having a huge tool belt to work with. So it's basically where I would lead you next. And to understand the possibilities of that is that you understand all the different musical forms that have happened as of this time and day and age, since the beginning of time, how many different genres, how many different musical forms and things have developed from people studying these things, from people thinking about them, from people trying to come up with different ways to use them to create other abstract theories from the basic fundamentals, and from other people's trains of thought. Somebody's taken funk, for an example, that, or the blues, and come up with funk and groove and the trap music, and it just goes on and on and on. And basically, some of those weren't developed. Some of those were taken just the basics and wandered off on accident. But you have to understand, the more knowledge you have about these things, that as you develop something else, the more the more possibilities of it becoming a beautiful new form of music or style or genre that it can become, because of the more knowledge you have of all the other things that have developed over time to become all these other musical forms, all these concepts of acoustics and sound and music and instruments and signals and electronics and all this stuff. It can be a little bit deep. So, but it's very pertinent. So, it's very, very pertinent in developing yourself as a next step. And I don't presume, I went at it full bore, and I set my guitar down for a little while after I studied music itself to understand music, and started studying all these things in detail so that I would understand all that kind of stuff really well. So that whenever I'm dealing with music in any way, music production, recording, mixing, and mastering, acoustics, sound, digital signal processing, analog equipment, electronics, how that's going to affect my amplifiers, my sound, my effects, what kind of guitar, is that a better pickup or not a better pickup, what is that, my plugins, I've got XLR plugins or TRS or TS, what is that really going to do, how good of a dynamic microphone do I need, or how good of a condenser microphone do I need, and why should I use one or the other, when I mic my acoustic guitar, so that, my productions are more well done, besides me just being a better guitarist. And those things start to come together to develop yourself as a much better musician, as well as a much better guitarist, a much better composer. I've got another one in here on composing that I put together that's basically lays out a bunch of ideas about different concepts that are happening in composition, that that I'm looking at. What kind of things am I looking at when I start to compose? What are the most basic things and the most complex things that I run into when I start trying to look at song structures and what I'm doing, and ideas and things to look at to try to go with different things. It goes on and on like that. So it's a really important thing to get into your head, because in this next step of your stage of your development, that whether or not you go full head bore into this, or you just start picking apart it, you're doing your practicing, you're playing and stuff like that, and when you can't play no more and you can't practice no more and you're tired of playing and practicing, then instead of walking away from music completely, that you go here. Does that make sense? That way that your mind stays in the music and you're developing yourself in your mind as far as music and sound and acoustics and instruments and all the things related, your amplifiers and music and your all the things that are related to what you're trying to do when you're not just practicing, and you're not just studying something that's just directly related to a genre you're working on, to expand your mind, to open up the infinite possibilities that music is. Does that make sense? And you'd be amazed at all the wonderful things that you'll experience at the enlightenments that you stumble across in your studies. So anyway, this is where I would lead you in the next phase of your studies and your development as a guitarist, so that you can develop yourself into a well-rounded, a well-versed, very knowledgeable and versatile musician and guitarist that has a lot of understanding, wisdoms, and knowledge to develop your own style and your own technique and performance, the way you perform, the kind of stuff you perform, understanding interrelationships of different musical forms and how you can use them to become the best guitarist that you possibly can. So I hope that helps you out, and I hope that that made sense why I would say that to you, because in that study you will find a whole lot of things that are going to develop you as a musician and as a guitarist, rather than stumbling around in stuff that just keeps you stagnant, that doesn't expand your mind, that doesn't expand your wisdom, that doesn't expand your knowledge, that doesn't expand you as becoming this next Joe Satriani or Paco de Lucia or the next Bach or Beethoven or Paganini. So that's where I send you next, bro. Peace out, love. I hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck on your studies. Become the best and greatest guitarist that you can. See you in the next video.